A 3-year-old girl placed her plastic doctor's kit against her dog's side, murmuring soft reassurances. When her father watched the security camera recording that night, he saw something that sent chills down his spine. Bruno, their enormous Saint Bernard, had flinched with a sharp cry, not from the child's gentle touch, but from something deeper, something invisible. One simple afternoon of pretend play had revealed what trained veterinarians would later describe as medically improbable for someone so young to identify. What this toddler uncovered was so extraordinary. It rescued a life and transformed everything her family understood about instinct, devotion, and the invisible connection between a child and her companion when something felt wrong. The Peterson home had always been a place of warmth, the type that exists where a massive, gentle dog and an inquisitive young girl mature together. Bruno, a 155-pound Saint Bernard with deep amber eyes, had been Sophie's constant presence since her first day home from the maternity ward. Wherever she wandered, he trailed behind. When she rested, he maintained watch. But approximately 1 month ago, everything shifted. "He's refusing his meals again," Amanda Peterson announced, gazing at Bruno's full dish. Her tone carried frustration, laced with worry. She'd invested nearly an hour preparing his food, the premium brand their veterinarian had suggested only to observe. It's sitting there, untouched. Her spouse, James, glanced up from his computer, massaging his forehead. He'd been logging 18-hour workdays recently, attempting to complete a major project. "Perhaps he's simply aging," he mumbled, his voice empty from fatigue. "Animals experience phases. He's barely 7 years old." "Amanda, I genuinely don't possess the capacity for this discussion presently." The strain between them had been accumulating like gathering storm clouds. Neither had experienced proper rest in weeks. James, from occupational pressure. Amanda, from anxiety about Bruno's peculiar behavior. The dog had developed a habit of positioning himself near the glass door for extended periods, staring outward at emptiness. During quiet instances, they were convinced they could detect sorrow in his gaze. "Mama, why does Bruno look so unhappy?" Sophie materialized in the entrance, her tiny face etched with concern. She wore her beloved pink nightgown, the one decorated with moons, and gripped her stuffed elephant tightly. "He's not unhappy, darling. He's simply exhausted." "No," Sophie's voice contained that absolute certainty only 3-year-olds can muster. "Something inside him is broken. I can sense it." Amanda felt her composure fracture like fragile glass. "Sophie, sweetheart, that's not animals. Don't function that way. He likely just consumed something disagreeable. Please, just go occupy yourself. All right?" "Mama," requires a moment. Sophie's bottom lip quivered, but she didn't protest. She simply approached where Bruno rested on his cushion, his enormous head positioned on his massive paws, and nestled beside him. The dog remained motionless, didn't recognize her proximity with his typical tail movement or affectionateness detail. Nobody registered at that moment. Bruno's respiration had grown somewhat strained, his chest expanding and contracting with increased difficulty than normal. The midnight warning. That evening, the distressing sounds commenced. Amanda awakened at 3:15 a.m., 2 noises she'd never encountered previously. Soft, sorrowful moans emanating from the family room. She stumbled from bed, her thoughts clouded from disrupted sleep, and discovered Bruno moving in repetitive patterns. His eyes appeared enlarged, nearly desperate, and positioned in the corridor. Diminutive and pale in the shadows, stood Sophie. "I informed you," the small girl whispered. "I informed you. Something inside him was broken." Sophie returned to bed. "You'll become ill, remaining awake like this." "But Bruno requires my assistance." "What Bruno requires," Amanda stated, her tone more severe than intended, "is rest. And you do as well. Tomorrow, we'll contact the doctor if he continues behaving strangely. But presently, everyone must sleep." The statement lingered in the atmosphere between them. Amanda would recall with overwhelming remorse in the approaching days. Sophie's eyes brimmed with tears, but she complied, shuffling back to her chamber, with her elephant trailing behind. Bruno observed her departure, his moaning intensifying, as though he desired to follow, but was incapable. If only they had comprehended that time was diminishing. If only they had acknowledged, when innocence articulated truth, that experience rejected. The moment everything unraveled. The critical juncture arrived on a Wednesday afternoon. Amanda had reached her absolute limit. Bruno's conduct had grown progressively irregular, moaning, declining food for 6 consecutive days. She'd arranged a veterinary consultation for the following Monday, but segments of her contemplated whether they should temporarily relocate him somewhere, provide everyone respite from the persistent concern. Perhaps he should stay elsewhere. Temporarily, she mentioned to James that morning, just until we comprehend what's occurring. Sophie's becoming excessively invested in his mood fluctuations, and I cannot manage this stress anymore. James appeared surprised. You desire to relocate Bruno, not permanently, just briefly. He's impacting every individual in this household. They were unaware Sophie was listening from the staircase's summit. That afternoon, while Amanda organized dishes in the kitchen, Sophie reached a determination. She marched to her toy container and extracted her medical play, set the plastic stethoscope, the artificial thermometer, all the instruments she utilized when playing hospital with her stuffed creatures. I'm going to repair you, Bruno, she declared with unwavering conviction. Mama doesn't comprehend, but I understand. Bruno remained on his cushion, immobile except for his labored respiration. When Sophie approached, he elevated his head marginally, his tail producing the slightest movement, initial indication of vitality he'd displayed in days. All right, Mr. Bruno, remain still. I must listen to your insides. She pressed the toy stethoscope against his chest, repositioning it around the manner she'd witnessed physicians perform on television. Her expression was solemn, focused. Bruno remained absolutely motionless, as though he comprehended the significance of this instance. Then, Sophie repositioned the stethoscope to a particular location near his left flank, just beneath his front leg. Bruno shrieked, not a playful sound or a casual whimper, but a piercing, anguished cry that caused Sophie to recoil in shock. His complete body had stiffened, his eyes compressing shut. Daddy! Sophie screamed. Daddy! Come immediately. James rushed in, his pulse racing. What occurred? Sophie, I instructed you to stop bothering him, but I was assisting. I was examining his insides, and he produced a pain sound. Exactly. Here, she indicated Bruno's chest. You likely applied excessive pressure. Sophie, I promise if you cannot. Amanda. James had materialized in the entrance, his phone in his grasp. I've been filming her, for memories. But observe this. He replayed the recording he'd captured from the corridor, intending to document a tender moment of his daughter performing pretend veterinarian. But when he reviewed it, something captured his attention. The precise instant Sophie contacted that specific location. Bruno's response wasn't merely discomfort. It was severe pain. His eyes had expanded. His mouth had opened in a silent gasp before the shriek emerged. Replay it, Amanda whispered. They observed it for additional times. Each viewing rendered the reality more undeniable. This wasn't a dog being theatrical or a child being excessively forceful. This was something else. Something was incorrect, terribly incorrect. We must transport him immediately, James stated, his voice suddenly urgent. Right now. The emergency discovery, the emergency animal hospital, was 20 minutes distant, but it seemed like eternities. Bruno reclined across the rear seat, Sophie's small hand resting gently on his head, deliberately avoiding the location that had triggered him pain. I apologize. I didn't trust you, Amanda whispered to her daughter, her throat constricting around the words. I'm incredibly sorry, precious. Dr. Sarah Mitchell encountered them at the entrance, her face professionally composed, but her movements swift and practiced. She'd labored in emergency veterinary medicine for 15 years, and Amanda could observe her evaluating Bruno with experienced eyes. Inform me everything. James displayed the recording. Dr. Mitchell observed it once, then immediately summoned her assistant. I require radiographs immediately, and prepare for cardiac imaging. What is it? Amanda's voice fractured. What's affecting him? I prefer not to speculate, but that response in that precise location alarms me considerably. How extended has he been inactive? For weeks, perhaps slightly more. Dr. Mitchell's expression grew severe. Understood. I require you to remain here. This may require considerable time. The waiting area transformed into confinement. 30 minutes, 60-90. Sophie sat between her parents, unusually silent, her toy stethoscope gripped in her hands. "What if I damaged him?" she whispered. "You didn't damage him, sweetheart," James stated, embracing her closely. "You assisted him. You're the only person who recognized what we all overlooked." When Dr. Mitchell finally appeared, her face was serious, but her eyes contained something else: respect, perhaps even wonder. "Mr. and Mrs. Peterson, your daughter may have rescued your dog's life." The words seemed to reverberate in the sterile corridor. Impossible, yet entirely genuine. "Bruno has progressive cardiac disease, a condition affecting his heart muscle. It's degenerative, frequently fatal if unaddressed. What's extraordinary is that your daughter somehow identified the precise location where his heart has begun deteriorating. The pain he expressed when she contacted that location, that was authentic cardiac distress." Amanda's legs weakened. James caught her, his own face drained of pigment. How near were we?" Dr. Mitchell's silence communicated volumes before her words materialized. "If this had continued another 10 days, perhaps less, we'd be conducting a vastly different conversation." The strain on his heart was approaching critical levels. He could have experienced sudden cardiac collapse at any instant. The transformation. They transported Bruno home 4 days later with medication and a treatment strategy that Dr. Mitchell assured would provide him years of healthy existence ahead. The transformation was immediate. Within hours of commencing treatment, Bruno's eyes illuminated. He consumed his first complete meal in weeks. The moaning ceased. Dr. Mitchell had explained everything comprehensively that first evening. After Bruno had been stabilized, canines possess an remarkable capacity to conceal pain and illness. It's evolutionary, a survival mechanism. What renders this case so exceptional is that a 3-year-old child identified something that we as adults attributed to normal aging or behavioral complications. But how did she understand? James had inquired. "I cannot explain it scientifically, but there's something regarding the connection between children and animals, particularly children this young. They interpret emotions and physical conditions in methods we've conditioned ourselves away from. They trust their instincts." Your daughter sensed something was incorrect, and she was accurate. The veterinarian had paused then, regarding Sophie with something resembling amazement. "In my 15 years of practice, I've never witnessed anything comparable to this. If it hadn't been for her persistence, her imaginative play, her pure determination to assist her companion, Bruno wouldn't be here." Amanda had cried, then profound convulsing sobs that shook her entire frame. All those evenings, she'd dismissed Sophie's concerns. All the occasions, she'd instructed her daughter to stop fussing over the dog. The guilt was overwhelming. She rescued him, Dr. Mitchell stated simply, when nobody else could. The bond that saved a life. That first evening back home, after Bruno had settled into his cushion with a satisfied stomach and a moving tail, Amanda discovered Sophie sitting on the floor beside him. The little girl was crying quietly, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Baby, what's wrong?" I thought you were going to send Bruno away. I heard you mention it." Amanda's heart shattered completely. She dropped to her knees beside her daughter and embraced her tightly. "Sophie, I am profoundly sorry. I was exhausted and frightened, and I didn't comprehend. You were correct about everything. You understood Bruno's insides were hurting when I couldn't perceive it. You rescued him. Do you comprehend that? You rescued your best companion's life." Sophie wiped her eyes with her hands back. "I just loved him. That's all. And that's everything," Amanda whispered. They sat together in silence for a moment. Then Sophie gently positioned her small hand on Bruno's chest, not the location that had caused pain, but over his heart, where now it pulsed strong and steady. "Feel better now, Bruno?" The Saint Bernard elevated his massive head and pressed his nose against Sophie's cheek, his tail thumping against the floor with the enthusiasm they hadn't witnessed in weeks. Then he performed something he'd never done previously. He gently grasped Sophie's hand in his mouth, not biting, just holding it there. A gesture of trust, of gratitude, of a bond that transcended species and age and explanation. James captured the moment on recording when he shared it online with the caption, "My 3-year-old saved our dogs." life with a toy stethoscope. He never anticipated it would become viral, but within days, millions had observed the footage of Sophie's examination and Bruno's pained response. The comments flooded in by the thousands. Children perceive what we've forgotten how to search for. That little girl possesses more intuition than most professionals. Never dismiss a child's instincts regarding their animals. The narrative spread across platforms, featured on news programs, shared in veterinary communities. Dr. Mitchell herself appeared on morning broadcasts, explaining the medical phenomenon and emphasizing the importance of trusting the connection between children and animals. But in the Peterson household, existence simply returned to its natural rhythm, with one crucial difference. When Sophie stated something was incorrect, they listened. Always. The greater truth. Sometimes the boundary between life and loss is protected not by years of expertise or advanced technology, but by a child's pure, unfiltered devotion. What we dismiss as imagination frequently perceives truths that experience has taught us to overlook. Sophie didn't rescue Bruno because she comprehended cardiology or veterinary medicine. She rescued him because she loved him without conditions, without doubt, without the filters that instruct adults to be reasonable or practical. The heart communicates in languages that logic cannot interpret. And sometimes, just sometimes, the smallest hands contain the biggest miracles, if only we possess the wisdom to trust them. In the end, what was truly uncovered that day wasn't just Bruno's illness. It was a reminder that intuition, especially the intuition born from unconditional love, can perceive what our trained eyes cannot. That the most profound healing begins with simply believing in love, in connection, in the quiet voice that says something is wrong, even when the world insists everything is fine. If this story moved you, opened your eyes to the power of a child's intuition, or reminded you to listen when love speaks, don't forget to like this video, comment your thoughts, and subscribe for more powerful stories that celebrate the unexplainable bonds that save lives. Share it with friends and family, because sometimes the smallest voices carry the most important messages, and the purest hearts can see what wisdom overlooks. Please leave a like on this video and share your thoughts in the comments below. Subscribe to The Gentle Bond for more incredible true stories of love, loyalty, and the magic that happens when a pet becomes family.